Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a. I don't know. We'll do. Is it ZFG? Is this the stack? What are we doing here?
Let's do the stack.
All right, so it's the stack, ladies and gentlemen, and tonight's episode is very special because this is about something that means something to me and Liana. This is about war games.
Yes.
Now,
And like the whole scope of war games, and the reason that we're talking about war games is he watched it. He watched one of the matches, and we started talking about war games, and I figured we might as well start recording.
Might as well start recording. So, for those of you who have been living under a rock for the last couple of weeks, or if you worked 50 hours of overtime like I did, War Games was this last Saturday night, and I'm gently watching it. I'm watching it for three reasons: War Games, Roman Reigns, and Austin Theory. So, honorable mention: AJ Styles vs. Finn Balor apparently was a banger. So, I'm gonna watch that. But War Games. Now, if you are any sort of WCW fan or pro wrestling fan from back in the 80s into now, like the Jim Crockett Promotions, NWA, old WWF and stuff like that, like Liana is here, you know about the War Games. Because the War Games match was created when Dusty Rhodes was inspired by a viewing of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. It was originally used as a specialty match for the Four Horsemen. The first ever War Games match took place at the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia, during the NWA's Jim Crockett Promotions Presents the Great American Bash 1987 tour, also known as War Games, The Match Beyond.
Yes.
It'd be held at 3 house shows later that year, once in the Miami Orange Bowl, once in Chicago at the UIC Pavilion, and the other at the NWA's debut of the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island. In 1988, those of you who know, Jim Crockett Promotions was sold to Turner Broadcasting and rebranded as World Championship Wrestling, as we would love to fall in love with as WCW. As WCW was still under the NWA banner that year, it would be held during the Great American Bash Tour in '88 at 11 house shows. One was released on the WWE Horsemen DVD. The final War Games under the WCW NWA banner was at the Great American Bash '89 and a house show rematch at the Omni in Atlanta. WCW no longer under the NWA, then first used the match in 91 at Wrestle War and at 5 house shows in the 91 Great American Bash Tour and in 92 at Wrestle War before it became a traditional fall brawl event from 93 to 98. In 2001, the World Wrestling Federation, renamed to WWE in 2002, purchased WCW and its assets. The War Games match would be revived for NXT at the event titled NXT TakeOver War Games. And this would also be usually the night before Survivor Series. It'd be an annual event until 2021. The TakeOver Series was discontinued when Triple H was fired from NXT, but a War Games event was still held in December the following year, and now the Survivor Series pay-per-view hosted Survivor Series War Games, where it hosted 2 War Games matches, one for men and one for the women. Now, the original rules of War Games. This is my problem with War Games now. Because back in 1998 and prior to, the War Games rules were as followed. The match consists of 2 or 3 teams, between 3 and 5 participants facing off with each other in staggered entry format. Usually, there's a 5-minute period with the first 2 start the match, then every 2 to 3 minutes another participant from another team would enter, and the match would officially begin when every man from every team has entered the match, and the only way to win by that point would be submission or surrender. Now, all those rules are still the same, except for its pinfall or submission. The whole point of War Games was a pinfall was not good enough. That was the point of War Games.
Exactly.
Also, my big problem with War Games now, when NXT introduced it, War Games no longer had a top. It was just an open cage to where they can.
See, I have a problem with the top going away. Like that was like, it was a huge deal that there was no escape. There was no escape. You know, you couldn't run away. You know, like the Horsemen couldn't run away, and that was like a huge deal.
Yeah. That was
They
the
were
point.
so used to being able to run away and get out of the ring or get out of the cage, and the War Games stopped them from being able to do that.
Now let's talk about this. All right, so we'll talk about a few key moments of War Games history. All right, so the very first War Games match was the Road Warriors, Animal and Hawk, Nikita Koloff, Dusty Rhodes, and Paul Ellering against the Four Horsemen, which was Flair, Anderson, Luger, Blanchard, and J.J. Dillon, July 4th, 1987. The first WCW War Games was the Four Horsemen, Flair, Wyndham, Sid, and Larry Sabisco taking on Sting, Pillman, and the Steiner Brothers at
Horrible match. Horrible match.
Baltimore, Maryland, February 24th, 1991. The final WCW War Games was Kevin Nash, Jeff Jarrett, Scott Steiner, and the Harris Brothers against Booker T, Goldberg, and Chronic and Sting for the WCW World Heavyweight title, meaning the guy who got the submission or surrender would win the title, and Kevin Nash would make, I think it was pinfall because he pins Booker T. In Dallas, Texas, September 4th, 2000. Now, the first War Games under NXT banner was November 18th, 2017, and it was the Undisputed Era against Sanity and the Authors of Pain and Roderick Strong. So this is before Roddy joins the Undisputed Era, and the last...
This is the match where Roddy turns on his team and joins the Undisputed Era.
No, that happens later in the year. No, he does that.
No,
he does that at the Dusty Classic.
I remember it.
No, he does it at the Dusty Classic because he turns on Pete Dunne. Because he hits Pete Dunne and then he rips the Undisputed Era armband off Adam Cole and he slips it on his shoulder. Yeah.
Okay.
You can tell the turn's coming.
You know more about NXT than I do.
Yeah, that's when I was heavily watching NXT. I did not miss an episode. The last NXT War Games was December 5th, 2021. And this was actually really good. It was Team 2.0, which was like the new NXT. It was Braun Breaker, which is Bronson Rex Steiner, Carmelo Hayes, Tony D'Angelo, and Grayson Waller against Team Black and Gold, the original NXT. Ciampa, Gargano, Pete Dunne, and L.A. Knight. The funny part was L.A. Knight, one of them were injured. I think it was Ciampa, actually. One of them were hurt, and Kevin Owens filled in for them. So Kevin Owens comes out, huge pop.
Of course.
And Team Black and Gold wins. Or no, I'm sorry. That's a lie. I'm sorry. That was the 35th match. The 39th way was Team 2.0 versus Team Black and Gold, and that match did actually take place. This is the War Games match I still have not yet to watch. I have not watched that War Games match. Now, for Survivor Series, the two War Games matches this year was Team Bianca, which was Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Mia Yim, and Becky Lynch, who was returning to take on Damage Control, Bayley, Io Sky, Dakota Kai, Nikki Cross, and Rhea Ripley. And then the men's War Game match, which was fucking perfection.
The Bloodline versus
the Brawling Brutes, Drew McIntyre, and Kevin Owens.
That's right.
And this happens in Boston. Happened November 26, 2022. Now, let's take a look at the history here. The man with the most victories in a War Games is actually a three-way tie between Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, and Kyle O'Reilly under the WWE banner with 2 victories. The women is a three-way tie between Candice LeRae, Raquel Gonzalez, and Dakota Kai. And then their WCW way, or the NWA, the men with the most victories were the Road Warriors with 13. They went 13-0, unbeaten in War Games. Never lost a War Games match.
And I'm just gonna say, a little sidebar. I'm not a big fan of the Road Warriors, but they were hot shit.
Dusty and Nikita unbeaten in War Games, 11-0.
I believe that.
Lex Luger is 10-13. I guess 10-3 technically, the way you look at it. Sting, 7-0. Paul Ellering, 6-0. Never lost a War Games. Steve Williams never lost. Ronnie Garvin, Bobby Eaton. Stan Lane has lost 1. out of the 3 he's been in. Ricky Morton unbeaten, Robert Gibson unbeaten. Barry Windham has only won 1 out of the 12 he's been in.
That's sad.
Tully Blanchard has been in. Arn Flair has never won a War Games. 14 appearances, 0 wins. He goes to War Games to do the job, brother. That doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, you talk all the shit you want to about Ric Flair, but Ric Flair had no problem putting people over.
You want to know who's unbeaten in the WCW side?
Who?
El Gigante. Or Gigante, however the hell you say it.
Yeah.
4 appearances, 4 wins.
That was a brutally bad gimmick.
Dustin Rhodes unbeaten in War Games. 3 appearances, 3 wins. Kevin Nash has only lost once. Hogan he's 2-1. So he did one job. Buff Bagwell unbeaten in War Games. DDP.
So let me ask you. No, not okay. So I'm thinking of a different cage match.
What?
No, I don't want to get off the War Games discussion
Now
and start. I can literally go in so many different directions.
Yeah, I'm fixing to.
You're talking about tag teams,
and
you're talking about this wrestler or that wrestler,
so,
and I can go off at a tangent and rabbit trail all over the place.
Now, there's been like 15 different versions of War Games. There's War Games that we know and we love.
The Match Beyond.
Yeah, War Games. And there's the WWE War Games. And then there's the Ring of Honor War Games, which was Steel Cage Warfare, which was later TNA would take and they'd call it Lethal Lockdown. Because they'd have the top come down and weapons would be involved. And then, yeah, Lethal Lockdown is another one. GCW, I don't know if you know what GCW is, but you know what MLW is, Major League Wrestling.
Yeah.
So they do the same thing that GCW does. They call it the Art of War Games. Same rules as the original War Games. Submission or surrender, none of this bullshit pinfall or submission, but it's very deathmatchy. Like, it's light tubes and pizza cutters and shit like that. It was funny because this, like, 2 nights before WrestleMania 22, Jerry the King Lawler actually no-showed MLW's Art of War Games, where it was the Extreme Horsemen versus Terry Funk.
Oh, the original MLW?
Yeah, the original MLW, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was funny because, like, I remember I watched the build-up for that, and, like, Terry Funk goes, I have somebody that's gonna team... Yeah, because Dusty Rhodes was gonna be there. And it was supposed to be Terry Funk, Dusty Rhodes, somebody else, and then Jerry Lawler.
We're going back and forth.
Carino was targeting all the legends. It started with Dusty, then he went to Funk, and Funk's like, you can beat this old dog down, but this old dog don't die, boy. Even this egg-sucking dog knows.
Without going off on a rabbit trail, I know that you and I have talked about this on the side. I was a huge MLW fan, and that's where I discovered CM Punk in like 2001 or something.
First time I saw CM Punk was I actually got a hold. No, I got a hold of the DVD that was running around.
The Best of CM Punk?
No, the IWA Mid-South, where he fought Chris Hero in the TLC match.
Okay.
That was the first time I ever saw it, because I was a big Chris Hero fan.
Can you pause the recording?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Hold on. Alright, so as we were saying, so the different types of War Games matches, so even AEW does, so let's go down the line here. So spin-off matches, they have a list for this. Spin-off matches, AEW does Blood and Guts, which is, it's very similar, but I want to say the Blood and Guts match even is pinfall or submission, and we'll look that up here in a second. I'm actually going to click that real fast, because I want to know the...
Come in here. You're on camera.
I have clothes on.
Say to him.
Hi, Mom.
How are you?
I'm good. A pin. Okay, yeah. So even blood and guts is submission or surrender. It's not pinfall or submission.
It's not pinfall.
No, it's not pinfall. It's submission or surrender.
Okay.
And usually it's actually so every time it's ever finished, it's always been by submission. Look at her fixing your camera like a pro. Look at her. She's getting the hang of it. So, Mom, when are you free next? Because I got a part 3 waiting to happen.
When am I free next?
Yeah.
She doesn't know how to use my computer.
All she's got to do is sit there and talk. I'll do the rest.
I'm off on Friday this week, and then Thursdays and Fridays from then on.
We could work something out for a Thursday.
He wants to do a podcast with you about me.
I'll tell all your dirty secrets.
That's the plan. That's the plan. That's what I like to hear.
Edit this part out.
Oh no, this part's airing. This part's definitely airing. It's gonna have like a big watch this part here.
4 or 5 little arrows going like this.
Yeah, watch this part.
If you don't watch any other part, watch this part.
Hey Rangers, if you guys watch this, sponsor me, okay? Pay me. I'll make sure she wears that hoodie every time. Hey Slayer, you guys are still around. I'll make sure she wears the shirt every time too.
Yeah, exactly.
And Roman, I don't know if you can see it, but Roman Reigns, if you're watching, I'll wear this shirt every time too. But no, I really want to do that podcast. I've also been trying to talk to I've been talking to a few of the guys. They're gonna try to hop into the podcast and talk about it too.
Talk about me?
Yeah, talk about you. That's the whole point. The whole point of the docuseries is talk to all the friends about how it's affected their views of getting used to the transition. Now that we're it feels like it's been 10 years. It feels like it's been 10 years. This has been the longest 4 years of my life. It feels like I didn't even know you prior. I feel like this is the version I guess technically if you really look at it the way that you're supposed to look at it, I guess this is the version I've known the whole time. So I don't know. That was supposed to come out nice, but
I mean, she's not any different than she was before.
Yeah.
She's female now.
More of herself.
Yeah, you just have to. If you close your eyes and were blind.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You never know.
Right. It's like if you never knew she had a different name, she's the same person. If you just didn't know that she had what her name was, this is the same person the whole time.
With a goatee and everything.
They would know that.
You're the reason that this is growing.
Yes.
You're the reason. Every time I go to shave it, I'm just like, I can't. Alright, so spin-off matches. So AEW has the Blood and Guts. GCW has the Cage of Death, which I don't necessarily say you could count that as a War Games, because that was yes and no. Have you ever seen a Cage of Death?
No.
You didn't see the Team Ring of Honor versus Team CZW back in the day? That was the biggest indie crossover pay-per-view ever. Before Forbidden Door happens. But yeah, so CZW and Ring of Honor had this year-long rivalry where this is the mid of Bryan Danielson's Ring of Honor world title reign.
Okay, so when I was watching it, it was more of Jay Lethal was a champ.
Yeah, I remember when you were watching it.
And Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
So Bryan Danielson, I know Bryan Danielson was a champ. See, without going off on a rabbit trail, I don't consider this ROH.
Well, ROH isn't even a thing right now. It's Tony Khan's little. I'm gonna fuck
with
it. Yeah. ECW even did one called the Ultimate Jeopardy Steel Cage match. Similar manner to War Games, but with victory by submission, pinfall, knockout, or surrender. I could watch that. 94 with Shane Douglas, Mr. Hughes, and Public Enemy against Terry Funk, Hawk, Kevin Sullivan, and the Tasmaniac Devil, Taz, for the ECW World Title. I'm not even going to get into that because I could pick that match apart all day long.
So I want to announce something right here, right now. And you don't have to agree to it, but I do want to go in because we've been like your family now. You're my I'm your mom.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. We're not friends. We're family. Like, anyways, without going on a great rabbit trail, we've been podcasting and streaming and doing all this shit together. And I think it's time for me to relaunch my wrestling website.
I think it's a perfect time.
And not only that, I think it's time for you to be part of it as well.
I think that's a great idea.
I think that with both of our content and knowledge to combine the media together of streaming the event and having the podcast available, having articles of opinions on war games, to stuff like that. I think that I have a name for it, but I don't want to announce it here because.
Have you ever? Okay, so to answer that question, I have to ask you this other question. Do you listen to like wrestling podcasts by any chance?
I don't have time anymore.
Okay, so when I'm at work, because I work like 11-hour days, I'm on a lift all day. So to not blow my brains out in the break room, I listen to wrestling podcasts.
Wow! Wow!
That escalated very quickly.
That did.
All right, so I've been listening.
That scared the shit out of me, by the way.
I've been listening to My World and Click This. Obviously, Click This is the first one I listen to because it's Kevin Nash. I can listen to him talk all day.
Click This is amazing.
Sean Oliver is underrated as a podcast host. I think that guy should be where Conrad is. And then, like, I watch My World and the Jim Cornette Experience, and I watch all of them. If somebody has a wrestling podcast, I listen to. And I like the You Didn't Know. I hate that people shit on it. I think that is the funniest wrestling podcast I listen to. Because Road Dogg's one hits, like his little one-liners that he throws out, I giggle my ass off. Like, but anyway, so Conrad Thompson, fuck, I hate that man. Like, he has a website, it's called Ad Free Shows, and I was like, why don't we do something like that? Because he does a lot on there. Like, from all of his podcasts that he does with Mick Foley, Ric Flair, Jeff Jarrett, fuck, if you're wrestling in podcast, he's probably on it. But he also does shit like that. Like, so I think we should launch something like that.
Yeah, I think that we should, and I think that this is like the foundation of it right here on this podcast. You're hearing it first. That we will launch the website to where we have like the old website, which I'm not going to name because they stole my name. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
So bad.
I know you do. I know you do. And I know you want to put them on blast, but you know what?
Blessingtheblashback.com. The closest I can get to it.
But I think we come up with a different name. I think that we go with the same idea from before and add more media like the podcasts and articles of opinions and stuff like that. And I think that that's something that needs to happen because you and I have worked really hard to make this happen.
And not only that, I honestly don't think people understand. Like, a lot of people watch TV shows and they watch movies, and yes, I watch movies. Like, I'm fixing to go in there and watch Black Adam immediately after this podcast because I like The Rock. But even if you hear that sentence, the base of that is not because I like movies. It's because my boy The Rock, who's a wrestler, is in that movie. I'm going to go in there and give 2 hours of my life to this movie because it's The Rock.
Yeah.
And the only thing I watch outside of movies that have something to do with wrestlers is wrestling. Like, it consumes my entire life. Like, pro wrestling is my life. I have so much knowledge, so much history. And, like, here lately, I've been adding more independent wrestling to my shit because it's been mainly WWE, WCW, AEW, Ring of Honor. And with Ring of Honor introduced me to, like, TNA, and then TNA introduced me to New Japan, and then MLW, because I ended up getting the King of Kings event on DVD at a random pawn shop, and that reintroduced me to Vampiro, I will say. And then that made me go watch JCW, Juggalo Championship Wrestling, which just introduced me to all the
Lucha Underground.
I got my opinions about it. That's a different
Lucha
different
Underground.
podcast for a different day, because my opinions.
If you could just step back for a minute and tell people about how involved I am, like how much wrestling consumes my life.
Liana has watched more wrestling than people have than Days of Our Lives episodes have aired. That's where she's at with it. Days of Our Lives has aired daily for like 50 years, so.
And Liana was a professional wrestler.
Yeah, and Liana was a professional wrestler. But before we get to that, before we go off on this rabbit hole that we've continued to go down.
And we've already gone down.
Yeah, we're already gone now. I'm going to turn around for a minute. So, to finish this part of the podcast, IWA Mid-South did No Guts, No Glory, to where, what is this? Eddie Kingston was in that match. It was Team Ian, which was Ian Rotten, Axel Rotten, Chris Hero, Corporal Robinson, Bull Payne, BJ Whitmer, Eddie Kingston, Mark Wolf, JC Bailey, and Steve Stone against Team NWA, Eric Priest, Chandler McClure, Tank, Sal, and Vito in a double ring, double cage, 3-team War Games match, the winning team taking full control of the IWA Mid-South. And Team IWA won because Ian Rotten was not about to let IWA Mid-South fall in anybody else's hands. Major League Wrestling had War Games, where it was the Funkin' Army, Terry Funk, Sandman, Steve Williams, Sabu, and Bill Alfonso against the Extreme Horsemen. This is the event I was talking about.
T-Dub.
Yeah, Carino, Simon Diamond, C.W. Anderson, P.J. Walker, and Barry Windham, when Funk made Carino submit following a fireball to Carino's face. In 2018, MLW would return for a second War Games event, which they actually called the Art of War Games, which is really good. I liked that match because that match had it was Team Contra versus the Von Erichs and a couple other people, because that was when I was introduced to the new Von Erichs, Ross and Marshall, which are. I love those guys. Those guys are super talented. I think their careers are going to go up and beyond if they do smart things. Pro Wrestling Eve had a women's War Games. Nobody deserving to be... Well, I don't know. Jamie Hayter was there. The now AEW Women's Champion. Ring of Honor, the Steel Cage Warfare. Smoky Mountain Wrestling had Rage in a Cage. You know, I always thought that was a good name for a cage match. And Jim Cornette shit on that on Twitter. And he ran Smoky Mountain.
Yes, he did.
I'm punching him in the mouth if I ever meet him. I'm going to pull up that tweet and go, you see what you said to me?
He spoke out against...
This was your idea, motherfucker.
He spoke out against the LGBTQ community. I still love him.
You want to know why we love Jim Cornette? Because he's honest. You can't pay for honesty, okay?
You
Jim
really
Cornette's an honest man. At least he's honest.
So is Ric Flair.
I have my opinions about Ric Flair. Because he's the greatest wrestler that ever lived, alright? His fucking woo is my text message tone, alright? And there's a reason why.
I don't know, John Cena.
No.
John Cena is a human being. Okay, I don't like John Cena, but John Cena as a human being is just...
I love John Cena. So TNA had they first introduced it as Wednesday Bloody Wednesday, and then they did Lethal Lockdown. I'm glad they changed the name, because Wednesday Bloody Wednesday is a very bad name. I'm very glad Jeff Jarrett decided that's a bad name. We're gonna call it something else. The Lethal. That's a great
like
name.
change to fight.
Yeah. UWF in 2007 had a War Games match with Team Sergeant Slaughter, which was Rick and Scott Steiner, Dustin Rhodes, Kirby, and TJ Mack took on Team JBL, Homicide, Hernandez, Steve Carino, CW Anderson, and Elix Skipper. Where can I get a hold of this match? It was titled Uncivil War. What?
That's
a great name. That's a great name.
I told you Elix Skipper's a piece of shit, right?
If I ever host a War Games in E-Fetty, I'm calling it that. Uncivil War. I'm saving that. Women's Superstars Uncensored hosted Breaking Barriers, which... Alright, that's an alright name. It was War Games. They called it War Games, though. And then WWE. WWE did release a DVD anthology set called War Games, WCW Most Notorious Match. And then that would actually lead to NXT announcing that NXT TakeOver Houston, the main event, would be a War Games match. And that would host to TakeOver War Games. And then XPW hosted their own War Games match called Genocide with the same rules. So, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different spin-offs. Dusty Rhodes creates the match, and there's been 15 spin-offs. That is awesome. Now, a note here, a little special note for this before we finish. Yeah, that one right there, War Games, is in it.
No.
No?
Greatest cage matches of all time.
Oh, it's greatest cage matches of all time. Okay. So, in 1998, WCW decided to try something different and converted War Games into a 3-team, 9-man competition with the same cage and entry format, but they allowed pinfalls for the number one contender. I remember this. I watched this War Games the other day, actually. So, it was teams, but the guy that got the win was the number one contender, and it was also every man for himself, though there was teams. And I remember this because Bret Hart ends up locking on the sharpshooter onto Hogan, and DDP diamond cuts Bret and then pins Bret, while Piper's like... Piper apparently was supposed to win, but he misses his spot because he's fucking up Nash in the corner. Because Nash has put him in the corner. Nash, he tells Nash, he's all like, I'm going to put you on the ground, and Nash goes, good luck. And guess what didn't happen? He didn't put Nash on the ground. You got to think, at this time, Nash is, what, 6'8", 350, jacked, beautiful, masculine man. I love Nash. I got nothing but positive things to say about Nash.
Okay, so I without going off on a rabbit trail again, I love Nash, don't get me wrong, but as a young person, I love Diesel. I love Big Daddy Cool. He's looking at something.
Oh, that hurt my brain to read.
What?
On an episode of Nitro in 2000.
Jesus. Of course. That's painful to begin with.
Hold on. This sentence is going to just make you have an aneurysm. You ready? I'm going to read 5 words. I want to see your reaction. Vince Russo brought back War Games. And a new format that he called War Games 2000 with the tagline Russo's Revenge.
Yes.
This match pitted Sting, Booker T, Goldberg, Chronic against Vince Russo's team, Kevin Nash, Jeff Jarrett, Steiner, and the Harris brothers.
Yep.
For the world title.
And Russo ends up winning the title.
No, Booker T does. Because this is no longer... Or no, Kevin Nash wins. But here's how it goes. Here's how it goes. So it's a triple cage War Games.
Yes.
Got to get the belt to the top.
Yes, and bring it down.
And then walk back down.
Yes.
You have to take it up there.
And then bring it back down.
You got to make your way back down and leave through the door.
Yeah.
So Booker gets it up there.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
Booker gets it up there. He comes down. Goldberg breaks free of handcuffs, beats down some people. goes to leave the cage. Bret Hart cuts him off. This is after the head kick, by the way.
I
Just
know.
want to throw that out there. It's after the head
Shut
kick.
Shut up.
Oh, he ended my career, though I wrestled for like 9 more months. Anyway. Who
Why do you have
slammed the
to pick
door
on
in his
Bret?
face. The Nash retrieves the title belt, walks out the cage. I want to know,
We're talking about War Games, not Bret.
before that night begins.
We're
you're
talking
in the
about
back.
War Games,
Yeah,
not
no,
Bret.
I know. This is about the War Games match. In the back, you have. Hold on. So prior to this match, a match was scheduled, a 4-on-4 match for a qualifier to compete in the War Games match.
Yes.
Which was Sting, Booker, Goldberg, and Ernest Miller against Kevin Nash, Jeff Jarrett, Scott Steiner, and Vince Russo. But then they were forced to fight Vampiro and the Great Muta in a handicap match. Sting was. Goldberg had to defeat Shane Douglas. Booker T had to defeat his brother Stevie Ray. Miller lost to Chronic, thus making Chronic be put in the... Oh my God.
Hold on, real quick. Before we go back into this match, I'd also like to go on record that I have his phone number and I'd love to call him right now. Ernest Miller is a fucking piece of shit as well.
So Ernest Miller, you look skipper, you've been called out. The Harris brothers and Chronic drove each other out of the arena. Booker T retrieved the belt from the top. Russo interfered on behalf of his team. Ernest Miller entered the ring, but was jackknife powerbombed by Nash, and apparently was a sticky one. I remember that one, because he didn't like Ernest Miller. Because Ernest Miller said he wouldn't take the jackknife, and Nash says, I bet you will. And Ernest said some really stupid shit like, if you can get me up.
And he did.
Oh, he got him up.
This is Kevin Nash.
I remember Kevin, he talks about this jackknife in one of his podcasts. He says, oh, I got him up. I lifted him up, and as I got him up, I said, are you ready? And Ernest says, where do we go from here?
That.
And Nash goes...
That over in the early podcasts.
And Nash goes, down, and just fucking plants him. And if you watch the jackknife, Nash stands up on his tiptoes and fucking just gets like on top of him and just drives him. And Nash has never done that to anyone.
Another rabbit trail real quick. I've actually seen some really, really nasty jackknife power bombs by Nash, where I was like, as a one that was in the business, you're sitting there going, ooh. And like, cause like when I was watching it before I got in the business, I was like, oh, that's an amazing move. But you know, being a worker, it's like, holy shit, that looks like it hurts.
You know, he told a story about the Bad Blood match that him and Triple H had in the Hell in a Cell.
Mm-hmm.
And Triple H had a stiff back before, and he tells Nash, he goes, hey, when you drop me, I need you to stick me. And he goes, why? And he goes, I need you to pump my back. Nash goes, okay. What he didn't know is there was a screwdriver in the middle of the ring that Triple H dropped. So he drops that shit in the middle of his spine.
Oh.
Shifts his one of his spinal discs. Damn near paralyzes Triple H. Triple H gets up on his knees and you can hear him say, what the fuck was that for? Nash goes,
I will
said
tell
to
you,
stick you.
like, I often wonder what the business would be like without Triple H.
Right now it'd be hell. With Vince gone, who would it? Shane? Shane would have dipped out. Shane doesn't love the business. So I think Shane loves performing. Yeah. Yeah. And he's a hell of a performer.
My favorite match of Shane's is SummerSlam 2000 versus Steve Blackman, when him and Blackman go up the trunk.
Goes all the way up and he hits him with the
and
kendo
he hits
stick
him
and Blackman
and he fucking takes that bump. Like, that's probably one of my favorite bumps of all time.
I think the first Shane McMahon match I watched was Backlash, when he was fighting the Big Show. And he goes to the top of the swinging Backlash thing. And he gets up there and he does like the whole... And then he fucking falls. Apparently what we didn't see is he smacked his head on the first rung. so he doesn't remember the fall. But
he doesn't remember the bump through the King of the Ring.
Yeah, the glass.
He doesn't remember that either.
He kept telling Kurt. He said, "Put me through it. Put me through it."
And Kurt, if you watch that match, Kurt goes shit.
Yeah, it's the first time Kurt cussed on TV.
He throws him, and he drops him, and you hear Kurt go shit.
Yeah,
and then he
throws go thud.
Yeah, and then Shane goes, "Do it again."
Well, it was funny because the pyro almost busted the glass out at the beginning of the show. The pyro almost busts the glass out, and Kurt sees it, and Kurt looks at Vince and he goes, "What the fuck? That's our spot." And he goes, "It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay." Well, they reinforced it during the show. That's why it didn't bust right when they went to put Shane through it.
Wow.
So if you see it, when he dumped Shane through the first one and Kurt comes up and his back of his head's cut, that's the reinforced glass that caught Angle on the way down.
Wow.
Yeah, Kurt talks about that shit like to a T. So, but anyway, back to the War Games.
Back to the War Games.
War Games is a very unique lineage. And Triple H said on the Survivor Series press conference that, hey, wouldn't you know it? No one said anything out of line on that press conference. Nobody sat at the press conference table calling anybody out. You want to know why? Because you ain't going to do that shit with Triple H sitting next to you. Because Triple H will fight you, CM Punk. He's old, he's tired, and he works with fucking children. He said, "I'm old, I'm tired, I'm beat up, and I work with fucking children." That's what he said. Actually, Triple H had a lot of, so Survivor Series this year, he starts off the press conference with saying it was the highest grossed pay-per-view buy, the most watched Survivor Series in history, and the biggest Survivor Series event, sellout-wise, of all time.
Oh, real quick. I know we're talking about War Games, but let's talk about this. Under Triple H's reign, in 3 days, without a single match announced, the 2-night WrestleMania next year completely fucking sold out. In 3 days.
And it's funny because guess who?
Now you gotta book it.
Guess whose schedule is all free though that week?
Who?
He's only the highest paid actor in Hollywood.
Oh, really? Can you imagine? Seriously,
you could literally not have any other match that night.
The dude is
put Roman and Rock, and that match is
exactly. I would watch it.
I'm gonna watch it. There is no I would. It's gonna happen. I'm not going to work that week. The Friday for the Hall of Fame, not going to work because I don't work Hall of Fame.
I literally and Connor can attest to this. I didn't like Roman Reigns, but was it when he beat Drew McIntyre at Clash of the Castle? All you said, I acknowledge him.
What made me
Drew was gonna beat him.
What made me a Roman fan was the John Cena match at No Mercy. Not even the one that he's had recently, but there was a No Mercy match he had with Cena. And the build-up prior, Cena looks at him and he goes, "I'm here because you can't do your job." And the look on Roman's face was, okay. And he got to that match, and he hit Cena with everything. And when he beats him, that crowd goes, whoa. Because Cena didn't put anyone over. If you got to that moment, you knew Cena was winning. Styles beats him. Bray Wyatt loses. Next up was Roman. Because he even beat Lesnar. Cena beat Lesnar. And Lesnar was beating everybody. Roman beats him. And then Roman gets cancer, that whole thing. And then Roman comes back. They do the run with the Shield.
I forgot that, like, I'm so focused on the bloodline, like, I'm not watching it like you. Like, I don't, like, I'm still stuck in the fucking 90s.
Oh, we know.
Did you say we know?
We know.
Um, but I literally, like, you can't not understand how over the guy is. Like, I completely forgot about the cancer thing because of what he's doing now.
Well, hold on.
I
So hold
completely
on.
forgot about it.
So there's so much lore to Roman Reigns. It like blows my mind. So he does the cancer thing, comes back. They do the run with the Shield. Obviously, that's cut short because Mox dips out. Mox goes to AEW, does that thing. Rollins dips out for a little bit. He's gonna go become a dad. Roman, COVID hits at this point. Rollins becomes the visionary. Roman is gone for like almost a year. Because he leaves because COVID. You know, he just had cancer. He doesn't want to, you know, it's a health thing. He opted out. He didn't get paid for that whole time, apparently. But he was gone. He comes back and forms this tribal chief character. Comes back, wins the Universal title against Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman. And we're off to the races.
I think that impressed me the most, and this is before I acknowledged him. I was supposed to be talking about War Games, but
yeah,
you've been waiting to talk to me about
we're
Roman.
still talking about War Games because we're getting to Roman. Like, Roman's the big guy right now.
Like, they set up the WWE title versus the Universal title, and Brock versus Roman. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way that they're going to put, or Brock's going to put Roman over. There's no way.
WrestleMania. Acknowledge me.
And at that point, as soon as he wins that match, I'm like, holy shit, this is, like, I still have my doubts at this point. But when he beat, because I know that you know that I like the odd wrestler.
Yeah.
Nothing against Drew McIntyre, but he wasn't your typical guy. You know, I like Jinder Mahal. I like Jinder
the body of the 80s. That's what they always say. When people talk about Drew, they say he's got the body of the 80s.
Yeah,
he's built.
So I was a big fan of Jinder Mahal, you know that. So I like Drew McIntyre and I like Drew McIntyre from his time in the 3-man band.
We don't hinder the gender.
Exactly, and I love Jinder Mahal, and you know that. So I thought they were gonna put Jinder Mahal over, and when not Jinder Mahal, but
Drew.
Drew, I thought they were gonna put Drew over. I thought Drew was gonna win the title.
Especially because it's in fucking where the fuck were they at for Clash? Cardiff.
It was exactly, and I thought they were gonna put Drew over. And when he did that spot in the middle of the match where he goes, Cardiff, acknowledge me, I was like, okay, this is like along the lines of The Rock announcing his own match. You know, I'm like, this is pretty cool.
Well,
and
the thing
he wins the match, and I'm like, okay, and I call Connor right away, and I go, hey, I gotta acknowledge.
The thing that made me a fan of Roman is, like, for those that know me, know that I love fucking NWO. I loved the Horsemen. But the thing about the NWO and the Horsemen was they formed it, and the faction brought the people up to where they needed to be. Have you watched how the Bloodline's been formed? I mean, obviously you gotta be related to get there, but
yeah,
with an exception of Sami Zayn, and I'll get there. So Roman comes in with Paul Heyman.
So we're going towards War Games with this conversation.
Yeah. So Roman comes in with Paul Heyman. The greatest alignment. It is literally Bobby Heenan to Nick Bockwinkel. in my opinion. Listen, I'll get there. Hold on. Listen. Because Heyman managed everyone Roman had beat. He managed Brock, smashed him. Managed Big Show, smashed him. Managed everybody. Roman's even beat RVD. Roman's even beat CM Punk. He was the only Shield member to do it. When they did the whole Shield versus Punk thing for 3 weeks. Roman was the only guy to beat him. Who was managed by Paul Heyman, and he smashed him. So when they aligned Paul Heyman with Roman, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. So Roman comes in, wins the Universal title. Now he goes, I need protection. Jimmy's hurt. Jey Uso's the only one around. Jey goes, what makes you so big and bad? Roman goes, I got the strap. Jey says, I'll come and get it. Roman says, all right, come get you some. But if I beat you, stand at my side. He goes, okay. Because the way to form an army, if you can't beat them, join them. And Jey couldn't beat him. He tried 3 times. Couldn't beat Roman.
Yeah, but let's be honest. Jey is not on the level.
Listen. That's what everyone thought when the feud started.
Take away the Universal title. Okay?
Obviously, on paper, you're going to see Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns. You're going to go, Jey's going to lose.
Yeah.
But watch the character development for Jey. People started to believe Jey was going to win. So that elevated Jey to make him a threat. And then he aligned with Roman. So that takes a threat away from Roman, but that makes that a dangerous duo. Jimmy comes back. Jimmy gets permission from Roman to realign the Usos, and he goes, go get some gold. So the Usos win the SmackDown tag titles. Well, then Roman gets both titles. He looks at the Usos and says, hey, go get that other piece of gold over there. So they go to Raw. They get the Raw tag titles. Then Solo comes up.
Solo's the new guy, right?
Yeah, Solo's the new one. So Roman says, hey, I can beat you like I did these two, or you can acknowledge me. Solo looks at them two, and they're like, you should probably
he's the guy
just...
under the hood, right?
He doesn't wear a hood. He does the Taz thing. He's got the towel on his head.
Okay.
But anyway, he looks at the Usos. The Usos are like, hey, if I was you, I'd probably just acknowledge him. And he goes, I acknowledge you, my tribal chief. He's he looks like Umaga, works like Umaga, talks like Umaga. He's really good. I'm a big Solo fan. So he comes in, makes him a very dangerous threat because he's hanging with Gunther, who's Walter. He's hanging with him, and he's beating Sheamus, and he's beating Drew, and he's like a legitimate threat. Sami Zayn becomes the honorary Uso. The thing about the bloodline is what I'm saying is anyone that steps with the bloodline gets elevated. And there's like individual stories for all these characters in the bloodline, making them individual threats, but as a combined unit, the overall biggest threat in the company. And then they look around. It's easy when you get to the top of the mountain. It's hard staying up there. Because when you're up there, the only thing you can do is look down and watch everyone coming up. Thus forms the Kevin Owens aligning with Drew, aligning with the Brawling Brutes, getting to War Games, which made this War Games match feel old school. Because with the Horsemen, it was everyone who wanted to whoop their ass aligning together for one night to go to war together. And that's what this War Games match gave in. And the funny part is you would think when you mix a team like that, when you mix the Brawling Brutes with Kevin Owens with Drew McIntyre, you think someone's going to turn on one another. No, this stayed pretty much to the point. They just want to kill the bloodline. And damn, did they try. From what I heard, the match is really, really good, and we're going to watch that match later. But, whew, like that, I have goosebumps because I'm talking about the whole build-up to this match and the War Games. It made it feel very old school, and I appreciated the build. I appreciated the payoff. And then, the best part was at the end, Sami Zayn finally earned his place in the bloodline. He's no longer the honorary Uso. He's officially in the bloodline because he turns on Kevin Owens. Sacrifices Kevin Owens to the bloodline for them to win. And it blows my mind because if you watch Ring of Honor Final Battle 2011, Kevin grabs Sami and says, "I'm sorry," and kicks him in the dick. And Sammy's like laying on Kevin, standing up, and he's holding him. And he just looks down at him with disgust. At Survivor Series, Sammy low blows Kevin, stands up, and he's holding Kevin the same exact way Kevin was holding him in 2011. It's long-term storytelling, and it's beautifully done. Because then, the next night on Raw, I seen Kevin comes out and he goes, "Sammy, I loved you." And Sammy looks at him and goes, "I don't need you anymore." And I was like, oh, because those were my boys. I loved them in Ring of Honor. Like, they were the reason why, like, Kevin Owens, I'm a big fan of Kevin Owens. Huge fan of Kevin Owens. But it's just, oh my God, it was such a good story going into War Games. And this whole development with Sammy, Kevin, and the Bloodline. A lot of people shit on the storytelling for WWE. Fuck you. If you're not paying attention to the story, you don't get it. And it's just, it's one of the better stories. The only thing that's going to mean anything better to me is when Cody comes back. Because when Cody comes back, the only story you can tell is the story that's on the waist of Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
Because he's there for one reason and one reason only.
And they don't really have to build Cody.
No, Cody can literally come back
and get a match.
Roman in the face and go, "I'm next."
Yeah.
And Roman would go, "All right."
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Roman that I like. Roman doesn't show fear. And it's weird because he's a heel, but he's so good. It's not even that old school heel that he's a heel. It's like an old king. Like back in the medieval times. Because the king, yeah, he's a dick. But he's one of those that like, "You want my place? Come and get it."
Right.
You got to walk through hell to get here. But I'll see you when you get here. And Roman's kind of the same way. Roman's like, "You want these? Come and get them." Because he beat Brock in Nashville at SummerSlam. He beats Drew at Clash. Wins War Games, even though apparently he got mad at one of the spots in the match because Kevin actually smacked him. And I saw the smack.
Kevin Owens actually, like, legitimately potatoed him.
Oh, no, I watched it. I watched the smack on Twitter, and Roman gives him an immediate receipt, so I don't see how Roman could still be hot. But it was one of those things where, like, Kevin...
He may be hot that he got hit first. Or that he got...
That could be the thing. That could be the thing, because what happens is, so they're in the middle of the ring and the crowd's erupting, because Kevin and... So they do like an everyone down thing. I would say a double down, but there's more than two people there. So both teams are down. The two people that rise from the rubble are Kevin and Roman. The crowd erupts. And Kevin's feeding off the shit. And he's like, "You hear that? You hear that?" And Roman's like, "Oh, I hear it. I hear it." And he's like, "Look at me." And he fucking whap, smacks him. And Roman just like, and then just fucking whap. And then they do like a little like thing back and forth. And then Roman gives him a good old fashioned Roman Reigns uppercut. And then we're off to the races. And it was a good spot. Like, he didn't like, it wasn't an unnecessary hit, is what I'm going to say. But it wasn't like one of those things where, you know, where you pop Lesnar for real and then Lesnar beats the shit out of you for 10 minutes. It's one of those that like, hey, I'm gonna tag you for real because like, listen to them. But I don't know. I feel like overall, and even if like I don't like Butch and I don't like Rich Holland, the people that Sheamus are hanging out with, I like Butch. I don't like Rich Holland. Let me correct that. Rich Holland is the Lex Luger of that team.
He's like that extra guy.
He's like the Luger to the Horseman.
Ugh.
No, okay, I'll correct that because I feel like Luger did some shit in the Horseman. He's like
Okay,
the,
so
he's like the
let's
Mongo.
not talk. Yeah, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No one
because
like Mongo.
Luger actually accomplished a lot in his career. I mean, granted, towards the end of his career, he was a piece of shit, but you know,
Dude had a
but
body though.
over. He was over.
Dude had a body.
Yeah, no brains.
What did Sting call him? He had $1 million body with a $10 brain. God damn it, I remember that shit on Nitro. Points the bat at him and he goes, and Luger, look at me, you $1 million body with a $10 brain. And Luger snaps at him and he's just like, why? Sting's one-liners are underrated. Sting was a god on the mic.
Yeah.
I don't know though. But no, to the point to where like, the only part about the bloodline that fucks with me a little bit is like WWE is almost booking themselves in a corner with Roman, because now is it to the point where he doesn't need the belts, or is it where do you go from here? Because if you have The Rock beat him, yeah, you can have somebody go over on The Rock in like 3 months.
Okay, so but here's the thing. Let's play the scenario out. You have Rock beat Roman.
I think that's a bad idea, but continue.
Okay, but okay, so it's a bad idea, but let's say it happens, right?
Yeah.
Who do you have go over The Rock? Who's bigger than The Rock?
I have an idea.
Who?
WrestleMania is 2 nights.
So you have Cody go over?
Listen. All right, this is not because I'm a huge Cody fan. This is not because I'm a huge Cody fan. It is a little bit, but listen. Cody wins the Rumble, all right? Night 1, WrestleMania, you have Roman versus The Rock. Then you do Cena and Cody. Night 2, Rock and Cody, or Roman and Cody, Rock and Cena.
You don't do Rock and Cena again.
You got to. It's a rubber match.
Don't do
Rock and Cena
why?
3. Rock and
Why
Cena
would you
3.
do Rock and Cena again?
Why not? We got Rock and Austin 3 times.
Rock. Okay, hold on a second. Rock versus Cena was once in a lifetime, and then they did it again.
Yeah.
So you're gonna do it 3 times in a lifetime?
Yeah. Look at the scorecard. It's 1 apiece.
So you're gonna have a rubber match for no fucking reason.
Hell yeah. Tell me that's not selling out. That's not selling out that stadium.
That's a terrible idea.
That's a great idea.
That's a terrible idea.
You'd watch the match.
I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah, you know you would. You'd sit there in awe. Because the moment you hear do 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 do, you're like, oh, listen to the crowd. And then you're gonna hear it feels smell, and you're like, oh, listen to the crowd. And then the bell sounds. Oh. Oh. But no, seriously
Brett
though.
versus John in their prime.
You had to go there. You had to ruin this whole thing. We had a thing going, and then you just had to shit on it. Like, you had to take a big lumpy turd in the middle of it and sit in the middle of my fucking carpet, didn't you? You asshole.
This is my podcast. This is my podcast. This is the stack. This is mine.
You had to shit on it. You had to just pull down your pants and just take a big fat Cleveland steamer. Talk about Cleveland steamer. The Elite are back.
I don't talk about it.
Carry on my wayward son.
The reason I don't want to talk about it is because I don't have a way to watch AEW.
We'll fix that.
Okay.
But for now, I have a movie to get to. So, I'm going to cut this episode short. Are you free tomorrow? Or in like 2 hours, if you're still up?
Well, I'm on the radio from 8 to 10 tomorrow.
That's perfectly fine.
Me on TikTok, the one Queen Leon Rose.
That's
Follow
fair.
him on TikTok.
Okay, so after
Follow him on TikTok.
follow me on TikTok at Freakzilla20. That's probably getting changed soon. I might have a little larger TikTok presence. I think the next podcast might be aired on TikTok as well. We'll decide when we get there. Anyway, tomorrow night we're going to talk about some AEW stuff. Because tomorrow during the day, if Leon is free, she's going to call me in the middle of the day. And we're going to watch War Games. Because I want to watch women's match with her. Because I fucking have to. And then I'm going to watch the Bloodline match because I fucking want to. And then we will talk about those two matches. Then we'll talk about some other wrestling stuff along the way. I also had something else to talk about tomorrow night on the podcast, but I forgot what it was. It was like wrestling related.
Oh, and I have an announcement to make real quick, and that, I already did that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that more, actually, when I'm watching the movie.
We're bringing the website back.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that more when I'm watching the movie. I'll message you on Facebook about that. But, alright guys, this has been a great episode. Thank you all for
Did we
tuning
really
in.
talk about anything?
Huh?
No, that's the end.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah, bye-bye.
You quit.